Hi, my name is Serena Irani, and today I'm going to be talking about video games in schools. Now, from the stimulus, Video Games in Education by Kurt Squire, who has a PhD in Instructional Systems Technology, he discusses how video games could be supplemental to learning and the understanding of knowledge for students. And then in the article, Educational Games and Simulations, A Technology in Search of a Research Paradigm by Margaret E. Gretler, who has a PhD in Educational Psychology, she talks about how video games could be a model for learning environments in the future. So from these two articles, I thought about how a future learning environment in physical education could be an innovative way for students to do more physical activity and decrease childhood obesity. So this led me to my question: to what extent does the use of video games in schools affect childhood obesity? Now, from my educational perspective, the article, The Benefits of Interactive Video Games, an Educational Approach and a Systematic Review of Physical Activity, which was written by Carlos Marino Campos and Hector del Castillo Fernandez, who has a PhD in Psychological Development, Learning, and Education. They discuss how AVGs, or active video games, can be used in schools, and how they did a study comparing active video games to traditional fitness exercises. And they found that active video games produce the same, if not better, results against the traditional exercises they use. In Interactive Video Games in Physical Education, which was written by Josh Trout, who has a PhD in kinesiology, and Brett Christie, who has a PhD in education. They discussed DDR, or Dance Dance Revolution, which is an AVG where kids use dancing as a way to use physical activity. They're using stamina, spins, they're developing all kinds of sorts of skills, and they're having fun while doing it. So you can see in the picture over here in a school in Fresno, California, where they're using DDR, and the kids are having so much fun doing it that they're not even realizing that they're exercising. They're able to incorporate physical activity, and the kids enjoy doing it. In Caution Regarding Exergames, a Skilled Acquisition Perspective, Scott J. Peterson, Paul D. Cooley, and Vaughn J. Cruikshank, who have PhDs in education, they felt that lateral arm movements, they studied this with active video games, didn't improve as compared to traditional exercises. But in this picture, you can see, again, in the Wii Bowling, which is a video game, they use elbow extension and shoulder extensions and arm movements during the game. And you can see how they're moving their arm throughout it, through the angle of degrees over here, and how during the active video games they are using arm movements there. Okay, from my scientific perspective, energy expenditure and intensity of active video games in children and adolescents, which was written by Karina L.R. Canabrava, who has a PhD in biomedical engineering. She talks about the energy expenditure of active video games. They studied treadmill walking against AVGs, and they discovered that their energy expenditure in children and their heart rates increased during the study when they were using AVGs. And you can see in the picture over here, they compared the games that were sedentary, so they weren't moving at all, and then in active gaming, how much the energy expenditure increases in the picture over here between boys, girls, and then the mean of all of them in their energy expenditure, and how there's a big jump between at rest to active gaming. In the article, Linking Obesity and Activity Level with Children's Television and Video Game Use, they correlated obesity to video game use. This was written by Elizabeth A. Vanderwater, who has a PhD in psychology. However, they failed to include the external factors that contribute to obesity, such as their diet and whether or not the video games were active or non-active. Now, for a health perspective, in Electronic Game Changers for the Obesity Crisis, they discussed how advertisements for video games connect unhealthy foods to video games for kids. So in the advertisement, you can see that they were using Mountain Dew and Doritos to advertise for an Xbox game over here. So in the study, which was done by Sandra L. Calvert, who has a PhD in developmental psychology, she found that food companies could use it to reverse the effects and advertise for healthy foods instead of unhealthy ones. In harmful effects of media on children and adolescents, they discussed how electronic games cause increased risk of obesity. This was written by Vivek Agarwal, who has a PhD in psychiatry. They stated that there's a twofold increased risk of obesity for every 3 hours spent playing electronic games daily. Yet, this statistic only applied to sedentary video games and not active ones. By incorporating active video games in schools, they could help battle against this by having kids enjoy exercising and doing it in and out of the classroom. So in conclusion, I feel that by implementing active video games into physical education programs in schools, they could help make kids enjoy exercising and physical activity and want to do it in and out of the classroom, and help prevent childhood obesity starting from such a young age and developing later on.